Hello, everyone. Right now, we're going to be speaking with Dr. Heather Anholt. Heather is a wildlife vet out in Malawi, has been working out there for about 3 years. I've actually known Heather since about 2007 when we met in Vancouver Island, Canada. And it thought it'd be good to catch up, and so she can talk about what she does. Okay, so Heather, first question, the classic one: who are you exactly, and what do you do?
Who am I? I am a Canadian veterinarian that grew up kind of all over the place and ended up in a very small country in Southern Africa. And I'm really interested in disease ecology and biodiversity conservation. And what I do is very varied, but basically since vet school, I worked on getting into the field of wildlife and conservation medicine and One Health. And so I do kind of a wide range of things in that capacity in Southern Africa.
Give me a little bit of the story about how did you get to where you are now, and what are your academic credentials? Like, what was your pathway to arrive?
Yeah, sure. Um, so I did my undergrad at University of Victoria. I went through about 6 different majors. And I did a lot of humanities. I was always really interested in social and environmental justice. And in the humanities, especially like in political science, it just became clear that I did not understand those people and they didn't understand me. And quite frankly, we didn't really like each other all that much either. And I made a switch into biology. And I was sort of getting to the point where I'd been in university for like 2 or 3 years and hadn't really seen any clear way of like making a living out of a degree other than sort of becoming a university professor, which was like the obvious path because that's what you are exposed to in university. And the professions, are sort of are more like clearly laid out path. And I'd always been good in biology and liked working with animals and working on farms, etc. And so I kind of figured, okay, screw this. I'll just get the prerequisites to get into vet school, do the veterinary degree, because at the end of those 4 years, I will actually have a job and an income, and maybe that will give me the space and the income to figure out how to do what I really want to do, which is again like social environmental justice type stuff. So that's what I did. So I switched into biology, hammered out the prereqs, went to vet school, hammered out vet school, and then but with like kind of a focus on wildlife and herd health and like population health and that kind of stuff. And then what I did is I hopped straight on a plane and lived in Nigeria for 8 months. I worked kind of in exchange for room and board at a chimpanzee sanctuary doing as like a project vet. I kind of decided like, okay, based on this experience, I know that I want to work in wildlife. So I'm going to go do a zoo internship. And so then I basically started like down the path of getting into a zoo internship, which involves getting some small animal or mixed animal clinical experience. So I did 2 years of small animal medicine. I did this and I wrote a paper with the local provincial health lab, like in pathology. And then, and I paid off my student debt, which was important. And then coming out of the zoo internship, I got a job offer developing a sort of One Health field research program for an NGO that worked on wildlife welfare and conservation in Malawi. So I came out here to do that. I did that for 2 years, made a lot of connections here, and then basically when I left that position, just sort of kept doing what I was already doing and find myself still here a year later.
And for those, you mentioned this phrase a few times. For those that haven't had much exposure to it, just can you define exactly what you mean by One Health?
So when we talk about One Health, we're basically talking about work that promotes health of ecosystems or promotes health of more than just one species. So it's not so much about medicine, or if it is, it's medicine that's supposed to have some positive effect on a whole population, and generally like more than one population. One of the projects we worked on was looking at different monkey troops and the species richness and intensity of parasite, like gastrointestinal parasite infections in those monkeys, and how that varied with the intensity of like human living conditions, like in the home range of the monkeys. We wanted to know whether gastrointestinal parasite infections had any health implications for those monkeys. We wanted to know whether transmission between people and monkeys was a relevant health concern or risk for people in the area. We were interested to know whether dogs were part of that cycle. And so in that way, it's One Health because it's about like ecosystem disturbance, it's about human welfare and disease, it's about wildlife welfare and disease.
So this is now sort of advice to prospective students. So what do you think is the one thing that you know now that you'd wished you'd learned while you were a student, or even before that, like before you even started your degree perhaps, or while you were doing your undergraduate?
I think that trying to figure out what you're doing with your life, like professionally or academically, can be a bit anxiety inducing. And I think that because we've come through this school system where, you know, you're given assignments, you finish them, you hand them in, you get certain grades, you move on, and you go through the system, and then you get into, you know, the college of your choice, and you do the requisites and you get the degree. And so there's sort of like a tendency to think that that's the way life outside of like the traditional educational system works. And so you're looking for that like clear-cut path. And I think that what I would say is that I wouldn't worry really about looking for that. What I would just do is do the things that you find interesting, talk to the people that you find interesting, and ask them what, you know, what opportunities they know of or what they recommend you try out, and just keep doing that. And if, as long as you're, you know, if you're doing something that you find is interesting, it's going to lead to another opportunity that you also find interesting. And if you hop from place to place, 10 years down the line, you'll still be doing something that you like.
Okay, so on the flip side, what's the worst piece of advice you've ever been given?
Yeah, so worst pieces of advice. There are several times I can think of where people asked me what I wanted to do, and they basically told me that that wasn't possible or didn't exist or was, um, yeah, they basically told me that that wasn't possible or those opportunities didn't exist. And obviously they were wrong because it was possible. And I think a lot of different ways of doing what I wanted to do actually do exist now that I'm in this field, and I have a better vantage point. So I think it's great to listen to people's wisdom, but you know, don't limit yourself to, you know, another person's lack of imagination.
Don't limit yourself to another person's lack of imagination. that's that's a t-shirt slogan right there. What is it you absolutely love about what you're doing now?
I love the variety that I have in my days and weeks and months. So I might do like a ton of field work, and then I might have a few days where I focus on, you know, general admin or life admin, and then I'm doing something academic, and then I might be trying to, you know, bludgeon my way through some statistical analysis, and, you know, I do some, you know, a little bit of teaching. So yeah, I have like my days are hugely varied. I get around and see the country a lot. I get to stay in a lot of like really posh places that I'd never be able to afford otherwise, in these areas. Um, yeah, so that's what I like about it, and that's, I think, what makes it a little bit hard for me to explain. Like, you know, when I'm asked, "What do you do?" That's a little more difficult, especially because I'm not operating on one single grant or one single stipend. I've got a lot of irons and a lot of fires right now. Just trying to sort of like make ends meet and do all the stuff that I'm interested in.
Okay, just one last thing. So, in all the experiences that you've had as part of your work, what has been your number one favorite thing that you ever did?
I can't tell you what my number one favorite thing is. because I have been just incredibly privileged, and I've done have so many really amazing memories, and there have been so many people along the way who've been incredibly supportive, like
Mhm.
academically and emotionally. So I couldn't pick one, but I will say that working for Double Act, which was a production company contracted by Nat Geo in India, was an amazing experience, and I really enjoyed working with the Indian vets over there. That basically took us onto their like animal rescue teams, and we just did the craziest stuff for 3 months. It was just an action movie. um, and these vets and Indian biologists who were on the rescue teams were just like the craziest characters and really great scientists and animal welfare advocates. And gosh, I mean, if I had to pick one thing, I don't know, but like, scaling buildings and running over rooftops in Agra to trying to catch an old macaque monkey whose arms had been electrocuted off. I mean, that was fun.
Okay, great. That's just us wrapping up. Is there anything else you want to add just before we close up?
I feel like I managed to get out some of my key messages in my soapboxes already. I mean, I think if I just add one thing, it's that I really believe in science communication, and I really believe in trying to represent this little tiny corner of the profession authentically. So you can follow me on Instagram at Hezzy Fezzy Bushvet, and hear all sorts of things about my very strong opinions.
Okay, I will definitely put that out on the class so people can keep up with you a bit more. Sweet.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's been great to speak to you.
Yeah, it has, man.
Cheers.